This is CBC Vancouver News.
Protesters clash with ticket holders outside the Vancouver show of a controversial comedy group. Plus,
fortunately, it's making a lot of loud calls. Once it's out into open water, it can continue to call.
The clock is ticking to reunite an Orca calf with its pod off Vancouver Island after its mother died despite a community's effort to save her. Also,
we get a call from an employee at the warehouse saying, "Hey, I'm standing here with the police. Your container has been stolen."
a shipping container filled with e-bikes worth a combined $500,000 stolen by thieves using a semi to make a midnight heist. Hi, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us. We begin with some heated moments and a police presence surrounding a controversial comedy group. Tensions rose when dozens of protesters clashed with ticket holders ahead of tonight's show.
Yeah, I was there.
I was my auntie. Shame on you. Look at you. But who knew? This is like a great picture of the. This is Canada, guys. This is Canada.
The demonstrators were protesting the comedy troupe Danger Cats outside their show in downtown Vancouver tonight. The Alberta-based group has faced widespread backlash in recent months after selling T-shirts making light of the Robert Pickton case. Relatives of Pickton's murder victims called the T-shirts offensive, horrifying, and disturbing. The comedy trio's shows wound up being canceled in multiple cities, and the group said it had removed the T-shirts from its online store. Their shows have quietly continued, with ticket holders only being informed of the venue location day of. Well, BC's police watchdog is investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of a man in South Surrey. RCMP were called to a home on 159 A Street and 37th Avenue this afternoon over reports of a domestic dispute. The emergency response team was also called in. The man inside was later found dead in what appeared to be self-inflicted injuries. The Independent Investigations Office is looking into what role, if any, police may have played in the death. Well, the race is on to save an Orca calf off northern Vancouver Island. The young whale's mother became beached yesterday and drowned despite a mass community effort to save her. The CBC's Steph Mercier shows us how locals are now trying to help her orphan.
An orca calf swimming for survival off northern Vancouver Island. It's stayed near its mother a day after she became beached in an inlet near Zabalas, an area known for fast-changing tides.
She was likely in pursuit of a harbor seal, and unfortunately, she ended up rolling over on her side. So when the tide came in, she drowned despite the best efforts of locals to refloat her.
The whale was giving a really big fight.
Florence Bruce was one of the group who waded into the waters trying to push the whale back to sea.
It was moving its tail, trying to help us too, but she ended up passing away.
Biologists say they knew the 14-year-old orca. The Department of Fisheries and Oceans is now investigating her death and trying to save the life of her calf, just under 2 years old, left orphaned.
Fortunately, it's making a lot of loud calls, and if it can swim out on its own at high tide, or if it needs us to help it out, once it's out into open water, it can continue to call.
If the calf is going to survive, it will need a way out of the inlet and then find its extended family. Researchers are looking around for nearby pods.
Well, the thing with killer whales is that they're very much like us in their lifespans and their family bonds. And we also know these whales very well.
Meanwhile, those who tried to save the mother orca mourn.
I'm so sad inside. It's kind of like I lost a relative, which, because our First Nations people are so close to our land and our animals, right?
Stephanie Mercier, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, today was the final day for residents of Vancouver's Crab Park to temporarily move. Tomorrow, city crews will begin what they say is a much-needed cleanup of the park. Advocates are critical of the way residents have been treated throughout the process.
Park Board has been giving mixed signals about what, for example, if you see over there, they're like fenced-in pens that people have to stay within. That's something initially they did not clarify with residents, and then kind of put them up and made it very clear that people have to be inside of these, what look like animal pens, to be honest.
The city says crews spent last week consulting residents about the cleanup and then changed their plans accordingly. Those living in the Crab Park encampment are protected from eviction by a court order that says the city has not provided adequate housing alternatives for low-income people. A local business owner is desperate after a shipping container full of e-bikes worth a combined $500,000 was stolen from outside the warehouse last week. As Saurabh Sandhu reports, the container itself has since been recovered, but the dozens of bikes that were inside are still missing.
It has a new, improved motor.
A brand new e-bike design equipped with the latest technology, with a sticker price of more than $5,000.
It's a brand new style of bike.
But on March 19th, the team behind the bike received shocking news when 144 of these e-bikes went missing from outside a Delta warehouse.
We get a call from an employee at the warehouse saying, "Hey, I'm standing here with the police. Your container has been stolen," and that really just shattered our hearts.
The company posted surveillance video of the theft online. Delta police confirmed 2 suspects, a man and a woman, drove a semi-tractor into an insecure warehouse lot on NSS Island around 1 a.m. They hooked up to a shipping container carrying the electric bikes and drove away within minutes. On Friday, BikeTrick says they were told the stolen container had been found in Langley, but empty.
We have a few different containers coming, and this particular one was of super importance to us because it's a brand new model of bike that we've been working on for a long time, and we've pre-sold most of that container. Plus, this container also had about 8 of our prototype bikes.
Thomas says the loss is made worse because the goods were not under BikeTrick's control, so they have to rely on the warehouse's insurance.
I've made a video on it with the hope that if somebody spots them, then somebody can be notified.
This isn't fluke. This was organized. It was thought out.
Rob Brunt has been at the forefront of Project 529 for almost 10 years, an initiative aimed at recovering stolen bikes. He's pretty hopeful some of them could be recovered.
You know, that container ends up in Toronto, and it hits the market in Toronto, and they're registered stolen on 529. When the public starts to register again, it will flag those bicycles.
Delta police say they're actively investigating the theft and are attempting to recover the stolen property. And while Thomas hopes the goods will be recovered, his focus on serving his customers, several of whom have agreed to wait a few more months to get the bikes they already purchased. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
More women are getting into the trucking industry in Canada. From 2016 to 2021, the number of women truck drivers spiked by nearly 50%. Our Janella Hamilton takes a look at what's behind the growth of a male-dominated sector.
As a single mom working in film, Willow Heaton was looking for better job stability.
It's been a super humbling process, learning all of the different things that are involved with this type of trucking. Loaded over 13 down the Blackjack.
And although she has the companionship of a pretty cute co-pilot, the job doesn't come without its challenges.
75 pounds of triples. I am smaller than most people that work here, so I do have to try harder. I have some workarounds, and over time I've gotten stronger.
She is among a growing number of women entering the trucking and transportation industry in BC. Jacqueline Mosher began her career 15 years ago, moving product from rail cars into trucks.
Hey Chris, where are you located right now?
Now she's a division manager at Arrow's Port Coquitlam transfer facility.
My daughter's really, really proud of me. And I think that is even more valuable than the money that I was able to bring into the household.
When it comes to truck drivers in particular, a new survey from Trucking HR found the number of female truckers in Canada shot up 43% between 2016 and 2021.
We're really working to make sure we retain these women within our sector. So I think we are just on the cusp of some great things, and we have economic opportunities available, and I think women are seizing those opportunities.
Money aside, those in the industry say shift flexibility is one of the driving factors behind the increase.
Whether it's working 4 days on, 2 days off, whether it's evenings, mornings, whether it's working on the road in a sleeper, having more days off with your family.
And while it is still a male-dominated industry with men making up 85% of the workforce in Canada, that's changing.
Not knowing if we're going to be able to physically handle it or do it or potentially fail, I think is a little bit intimidating. And I think that a good point is to know that, we understand some of those challenges and we're going to support you.
For drivers like Heaton, a career behind the wheel has been very rewarding.
One of the best parts about this job is all the off-road driving, which is quite different. I get to see a lot of beautiful places.
Janella Hamilton, CBC News, Chilliwack.
It's Hong Kong's first weekend under a contentious new national security law. As we mentioned yesterday, Article 23 gives the government more power to suppress opposition both at home and abroad. As the CBC's Belle Puri explains, critics see that legislation as an attack on civil liberties.
Among those living in exile, there's new fear.
This is the darkest age of Hong Kong I've ever seen.
Former Hong Kong radio personality Edmund Wan is a prominent voice for democracy. After nearly a year in a Hong Kong jail for sedition, Wan is seeking asylum in Canada.
But if under the so-called Article 23, the new national law, I'm damn sure that I will be put in prison for at least 2 to 3 years.
Article 23 was passed unanimously in Hong Kong's legislature. The new national security law championed by Beijing allows for stiffer prison terms for crimes like treason, insurrection and espionage, and allows for punishment of Hong Kong dissenters no matter where they live. Leaders say the law is needed to restore stability after a series of huge democracy protests. Activists argue it's too broad.
Freedom of speech is not applied to you anymore, even though you're no longer in Hong Kong or in China.
Ottawa has expressed deep concern about Article 23. In a statement to CBC News, the Chinese embassy says, "We strongly deplore and firmly oppose individual countries and organizations slandering the Safeguarding National Security Bill of Hong Kong."
I don't think the people are fixing to stir up trouble, to have turmoil. I don't think so. So Beijing must extend an olive branch to the Hong Kong public.
In the meantime, Wan vows to continue his fight from afar.
I will still speak for the truth. I will still voice out for the Hong Kong people that they are afraid to speak today. I will still speak of what I believe.
For people like Wan living in exile, the worry is Hong Kong is no longer the liberal, westernized Hong Kong of the past. The new law, they say, is simply the next step to bring it more in line with mainland China. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, tens of thousands of trees in one of Canada's most famous parks right here in Vancouver's backyard are being cut down. A moth infestation in Stanley Park has damaged the trees. The CBC's Yvette Bren shows us the dramatic cull that some say is the wrong move.
This tree, rooted not long after Stanley Park was created over a century ago, its life cut short by a devastating infestation.
It's sad. It's very sad. I've been coming to this park since I was a little girl, and I've never seen anything like this before.
An estimated 160,000 trees are being cut in the park. Most are younger western hemlocks. Their needles were eaten away by looper moth caterpillars.
The first priority is public safety.
Vancouver's park board says weakened trees could fall, even spark fires if they hit power lines. It's been a race over the past few months to get the work done before birds nest.
We are the busiest urban park in Canada, the second biggest in North America. 18 million visits a year. You cannot simply have towering logs ready to fall on people in busy, crowded places.
The 400-hectare park is home to 500,000 trees, some centuries old, winding through the urban forest and network of trails, some now transformed. But many park goers aren't happy about it.
This park is the jewel of Vancouver. People love this
Thousands
park.
are petitioning to stop the cutting.
Obviously, when we see forests being cut down in our neighborhood, we have an emotional reaction. But we've gone beyond that and looked at the actual science.
She says this much cutting is overkill, but experts say the city has made the right move.
The city, I believe, did the right thing in, sort of looking after safety of people by removing, the dead trees.
Next week, replanting of 25,000 seedlings begins.
Hopefully my grandkids and their kids will be able to enjoy what I've been able to enjoy.
It will take a while for locals to feel at home here again. Yvette Bren, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, Nelson hosted a climate change forum this weekend. Residents had the chance to put questions to political leaders. Many were focused on the province's plan to help those affected by extreme weather and future changes to where energy comes from.
Being ready for change and making sure that no one is left behind in that change. And I want to come back to my opening comments to say, climate change is impacting some of the most vulnerable people the most.
The minister says while her government is meeting targets in some areas, it does need to improve in others, such as ensuring energy goals are part of the Clean BC framework. Well, the Port of Nanaimo is preparing to welcome cruise ships for the first time since 2019. As Claire Palmer reports, there are high hopes it'll trigger a growth spurt in the local tourism industry.
It's all hands on deck in Nanaimo as the port makes preparations to welcome the Seabourn Odyssey and MS Regatta to the docks.
We've got the space, we've got the availability, our residents are keen to see the ships here and welcome the tourists.
A cruise terminal and dock was set up back in 2011 to drive economic development in Nanaimo, planned for use by cruise ships like this one back in 2019. The goal was to see 25 to 30 ships a year, but Nanaimo hasn't seen any cruises since the pandemic canceled all 6 planned stops in 2020. The return has excited locals as Nanaimo continues to develop its tourism industry.
The optimism was very high. 2 cruise ships in a year is very good, but much like Oliver Twist, I think it's fair to say we want some more.
The focus will be on bringing smaller ships to town and offering a unique and intimate experience. Cruise guests will be able to explore Nanaimo's waterfront, museums, and breweries. Thomas says that there will also be excursion packages for local wineries and trips to areas like Cathedral Grove.
Well, it's a huge impact for the local economy from a tourism perspective. I mean, passengers get off cruise ships and they've got money burning a hole in their pocket and they want to spend it at our local businesses.
Local businesses are excited at the prospect.
The tourists really enjoy our waterfront, and so having the cruise ships be a part of that just makes it that much richer for all of us.
Residents in Nanaimo say, bring it on.
Introduce more tourists to the area because we need more people downtown spending money.
It's a beautiful spot. Welcome to Nanaimo.
Gives the smaller center some, more interest. But my other thought is the traffic. I mean, it's all great if people come off the ships and stay local.
The port already has 4 ships booked for the 2025 season and 2 more for 2026. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Nanaimo.
Still ahead, Canada is preparing for a possible Donald Trump return to the White House, and senior officials here are bracing for a potential hit to Canada's economy. We'll explain next. Welcome back. Overseas, the Vatican was in full pageantry today for Palm Sunday, but the ceremony added to lingering questions around the Pope's health. 60,000 people attended. Francis presided from start to finish, but he skipped reading his homily, a decision hastily announced mid-service. Recent respiratory ailments have seen aides read for him. That didn't happen today, and leaving in an open-air vehicle, he appeared fine. Well, senior Canadian officials are bracing for the possibility of Donald Trump returning to the White House. The concern that his trade policies could hurt our country's economy. The CBC's Katie Simpson shows us the urgent blitz to get American lawmakers on side.
How are you doing? Well,
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Republican Senator Ted Cruz has enthusiastically endorsed Donald Trump for president. And that's part of the reason why Canada's ambassador wants to get in his ear.
Thank you very much.
Over the past week, she and her team of diplomats met with dozens of U.S. lawmakers from both parties. So Canada is prepared to work with whoever wins the next U.S. election.
We're trying to sort of flood the hill, if I can be honest about it.
Another Trump term would come with uncertainty. His America First plan to boost U.S. manufacturing could upend global trade by imposing a new 10% tariff on all imported goods. Canada should be exempt under the renegotiated North American Free Trade Agreement, says the ambassador, who will point to Trump's own words to defend it.
He himself says it's the best deal ever, right? And continues to this day to say that this is the best deal that's ever been negotiated by the United States.
As Canadians stressed the importance of the relationship at a series of charm offensive gatherings, politics back home may undercut these efforts.
Fake news.
Fake news.
The left-wing censorship regime.
Their woke censorship ideology.
The Liberals have released an online attack ad negatively comparing Trump and Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre. Trump is known to be thin-skinned. He recently vowed to have Australia's ambassador to the U.S. removed over his public criticism of Trump.
He won't be there long if that's the case. I don't know much about him. I heard he was a little bit nasty.
Trump's place in Canadian politics hasn't resonated in the U.S. yet, and some of Trump's allies brushed off concern.
I know Donald Trump very well, and he's a very secure man. He's a very confident guy, and he may weigh in on some things, but he doesn't hold long grudges.
All of that is part of Trump's unpredictable nature that Canada is trying to prepare for in case he returns to the White House. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Washington.
You're looking at a live shot of the Port of Vancouver, and we enjoyed a beautiful spring day, but that sun won't be sticking around. I'll walk you through the return of the rain in your long-range forecast next. And time for the 5-day forecast. We certainly had a glorious day across most of BC. That sunshine was just province-wide, and that was a nice change from Saturday, at least for the south coast where we've been seeing all the showers. Overnight will remain largely clear province-wide, except for on coastal sections through the central and south coast. Chance of precipitation, and here's how it looks over the next few days. You'll see those spotty showers return Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday is when we see that next pulse come in. But until then, it'll really be isolated showers for the most part. Snow, of course, at higher elevations in the mountain passes as well, but off and on, really unstable air mass over the next couple of days. Here's how we're looking for tomorrow. Again, we'll be largely clear in the north, so sunshine again. They've been enjoying those high pressure systems for the last few days, even a week. And in southern BC is where we'll see those rain showers. But look at those warm temperatures, still in the double digits for the most part, except for the Kootenays. Further east, you can see barely above zero. And so we'll see a mix of rain and snow there. And here's the 5-day forecast for Vancouver. You can see still warm, as we said, but it doesn't look, or it's not as daunting as it looks. Those showers, about a 60% chance, and then off and on throughout the week. And then we'll start to dry out by the end of the week. And that is your late news for this Sunday, March 24th. For news anytime, anywhere, you can download the free CBC News app and always find us online at cbc.ca/BC. Thanks so much for watching this weekend. Good night.